Some bands fizzle out before their time, some way past their time, and some right at their apex. We're left thinking of what could have been in all cases. The latter to me has always been the case with Soundgarden. I was admittingly very young when the band broke up in '97, being only 13, quite new to the whole alternative scene, having gotten into it a year earlier in what I call its deathbed, and only somewhat familiar with the band's catalog. When I finally did give their last album, Down on the Upside, a listen, it was quite an introduction to the band to me. It was the album of theirs that grabbed me first and has kept me all these years. When I was a teenager, I had a shirt of the album, and I wore it until it was literally falling off my shoulders. I've still got it too. It's one of the albums I've heard earliest into my music listening years that I still consider one of my faves and is still influential to me as a musician. I can't tell you the amount of times I've listened to this album front to back. The CD case is broken, doesn't hold the CD anymore, and I'm surprised the CD plays just like it did on day one. I've played the fuck out of this thing. But enough about me. You want to hear the story of the album, right? The start of Down on the Upside begins actually with Super Unknown. The album had gotten immensely popular and helped the band with 5 singles. Yes, 5 singles and 5 MTV videos. The album, however, was recorded almost to death. According to Cornell, quote, Michael Beinhorn was so into sounds, he was so almost anal about it, that it took the piss out of us and a lot of the time. By the time you get the sounds that you want to record the song, you're sick and tired of playing it. The band chose to change things this time around and make things more natural. Kim Thayil said, we didn't squeeze the performances out of ourselves this time, like doing a guitar riff over and over for 2 days until it becomes rote. That kills a kind of natural feel. This time we kept it from moving into overdub central. We did everything short of making it live. Strangely enough, Super Unknown would hold another weird parallel to Down on the Upside. As Cameron put it, the lyrics were, quote, a big fuck you to the world and a plea to leave us alone. This was a factor that played heavily into the band's eventual unanimous decision to break up. Work on the album began in July 1995. Material was road tested and then more songwriting happened for about a month. Recording was from November 95 to February 1996 at Studio Litho, which was owned by Stone Gossard of Pearl Jam, and Bad Animal Studio, named after the 1987 Heart album as a tribute to Ann and Nancy Wilson, who joined studio owners Steve and Debbie Lawson in 1991. The band went for a more live atmosphere and left in sounds that producers normally clean up, feedback or out-of-tune guitar. The overall time spent on the album was less, making the process way faster and way easier. Cornell said, quote, the roughness wasn't a point of making a dirtier, more street version of what we usually do. It's about getting more accurate with recording. Something about this record seems more sonically direct, possibly less larger than life than previous. The writing had changed too, as members came in with more finished versions of what the songs would end up becoming. Ben Shepherd particularly was coming into his own with having written 5 of 16 tracks. Kim and Chris began clashing on the new sound of the album, as it was moving away from the heavy riffing that Soundgarden had done pretty predominantly for a big bulk of their career. Kim's only song on the album ended up being Never the Machine Forever, which resulted from a jam session between him and Mother Love Bone drummer Greg Gilmore. The song meanings came from a variety of sources. Pretty Noose was an attractively packaged bad idea. Ty Cobb was a hardcore pissed off idiot. Burden in My Hand, as Thayil said, was the Hey Joe of the 90s. Never Named and Boot Camp are Cornell's childhood. Never the Machine Forever was a life and death match between an individual and a less specifically defined entity, and Overfloater was self-affirming. Tighter and Tighter, No Attention, and An Unkind were leftovers from Super Unknown. The album ran 16 tracks and could have been even longer as 3 tracks were left off: Christie, Karaoke, and Bleed Together. The latter was released on the post-breakup Greatest Hits A-sides. Just the fact that this album could have included Karaoke and Bleed Together is a tease in its own to me. The band produced the album itself. Chris said, "A fifth guy is too many cooks and convolutes everything. It has to go down too many mental roads, which dilutes it." Adam Casper mixed the album and had worked with the band before on Super Unknown and ended up mixing Queen of the Stone Age album, Songs for the Deaf, and producing Nirvana's You Know You're Right. The title Down on the Upside comes from a line in the song Dusty. Cornell said that the title represents the different feels on the album. I brought it up at some point because the song that the title came from was Dusty, but my title for it was Down on the Upside. But Ben wrote the music and he called it Dusty. So since we don't really like having song titles being the title of the record, because it brings this weird undue focus to the song, I thought it would be cool to call it Down on the Upside. We started thinking about all these other titles and worrying about them describing the whole record without excluding anything. So it was the last minute and we were at a photo shoot for Spin, and someone called and said, "We need your title now so we can start doing the record package." So Matt brought up the title again and everyone went, "Yeah, that's it." Other titles joked by Matt Cameron were Mr. Bunchy Pants and Comin' At Ya. The album was released on May 21st, 1996 through A&M Records and gave us 4 singles in Pretty Noose, Burden in My Hand, Blow Up the Outside World, and finally Ty Cobb. The cover for the Blow Up the Outside World single was considered as the cover for the album. 3 videos were made for 3 of the songs. The Pretty Noose video was done by friend of the band, Frank Kozik, who had done posters and album art for the band. It featured various concepts of control featuring alcohol, the law, or relationships in general. The original ending of the video actually featured Cornell killing a woman. MTV obviously chose not to air it. Kozik shot back that it was too heavy for the dipshits at MTV. They got a dead girl in that lame Stabbing Westward video, so I don't understand their problem. Another version was shot by Ben Shepherd's brother Henry, who had previously worked on the My Wave video. The Burden in My Hand video was done by Jake Scott. Who is he, you ask? The fucking son of Ridley Scott, who did Alien. I knew I always really liked this video. The Blow Up the Outside World video was directed by Devo bassist Gerald Casale. He also did the great videos for the Foo Fighters' I'll Stick Around and A Perfect Circle's Imagine. The video featured Cornell strapped down to a chair being forced to watch a video like in A Clockwork Orange. It also bears a striking resemblance to the movie The Parallax View from 1974.
And be sure to place each one of your hands on the box on either side of the chair, making sure that each one of your fingers is on one of the white rectangles. Just sit back, nothing is required of you except to observe the visual materials that are presented to you. Be sure to keep your fingers on the box at all times. All right? We hope you find the test a pleasant experience.
May 18th, 1996 also gave us an SNL appearance by the band, their first. I still to this day have this episode taped, and it remains one of my favorite SNLs ever. The band joined Lollapalooza in 96 at the insistence of Metallica and started touring worldwide afterwards. Tensions in the band got even worse. Cornell said, "We really enjoy it to a point, and then it gets tedious because it becomes repetitious. You feel like the fans have paid their money and they expect you to come out and play them your songs like the first time you ever played them. That's the point when we really hate touring." On the last date of their tour, the band played Honolulu, Hawaii on February 9th, 1997. Ben Shepherd threw his bass into the air after equipment failure and stormed off stage. Exactly 2 months later, it was undeniable, and the band made a public announcement that they were breaking up. Thales said, "It was pretty obvious," and Cornell said the band was eaten up by the business. On January 1st, 2010, Cornell wrote on his Twitter, "The 12-year break is over, and school is back in session. Sign up now. Knights of the Sound Table ride again." The band played its first live show on April 16th under the name Nude Dragons in Seattle. By February 2011, it was announced they would be recording a new album. Although thought to be released by the end of 2011, recording was prolonged because, as Thale put it, "The more we enjoy it, the more our fans should end up enjoying it." He also states that some of the songs sound similar in a sense to Down on the Upside, and that the album would be picking up where we left off. There are some heavy moments and there are some fast songs. Finally, on August 16th, 2012, it was announced that November 13th was the release date. This is the band's first release in 16 years. Me personally, I'm pretty interested to see what the band sounds like after all this time and see if they can maintain the high standards I've set in their absence. Will it disappoint, or will it fire on all cylinders? Who really knows? But I think Shepherd said it best when he said, "What I say after every record is the same. You haven't heard anything yet."